Hello and welcome. Around the world, millions of entrepreneurs have the skills, the products, and the ambition to sell beyond their local markets. But for many small businesses in emerging economies, getting paid across borders remains surprisingly difficult. Today, I am speaking with Douglas Davidson. He is CEO and founder of BessPay, a fintech startup working to make cross-border payments faster and more accessible for small businesses across the global South. Douglas, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Laura. It's a pleasure to be here.
Douglas, when people hear the term cross-border payments, it sounds like a technical problem, but from your perspective, what is the human problem that you're trying to solve?
Payments, Laura, are critical for an economy to function, and at the center of an economy is people. So it is about the person. Picture a young designer in Kingston, or a musician in Lagos, or someone in Nairobi selling what they make by hand. They're good at what they do, they want to grow, and they already have customers around the world who want to buy from them. The one thing in their way is something most of us never think about, and that's just getting paid. So that's the real challenge. The talent is never the issue. What's missing is a simple way to receive money for the work they've already earned.
So you mentioned people in various locations. Can you tell me more about who exactly are the types of people that you think about when you wake up each morning and work on this business?
I'm thinking about the entrepreneur, the MSME sellers, and the buyers across the global south. And the scale of it is really hard to picture. The World Bank says that over the next decade, around 1.2 billion young people across the global south will reach working age, but the traditional economy will only create about 400 million jobs. So that leaves roughly 800 million young people who will have to build their own income. And it gets worse with AI replacing some of the traditional entry-level jobs. The World Bank's own president has called it the defining economic challenge of our time. And he started to call it a security challenge too. And you can see why. When that many young people can't find a way to earn, the costs are real. Some are pushed to migrate, some are getting pulled toward conflict. And the research already links youth unemployment to economic instability. And a first job missed in your 20s tends to follow you, dragging down what you earn for the rest of your life. It hits young women the hardest of all, because without their own income, the whole cycle of poverty just passes down to the next generation. I see a significant number of these 800 million people, Laura, who have everything they need to succeed, they just need a reliable and efficient way to get paid.
And Douglas, you have talked in the past about the entrepreneurial energy that already exists across Africa and the Caribbean and other emerging markets. What are you seeing on the ground and with BessPay that really gives you that optimism?
What gives me optimism, Laura, and hope is that the energy of these people is there. You can feel it when you're around them. The young people, they're not waiting for permission. They're running real businesses across music, design, fashion, tech, and they're already trading with each other across borders. So I'll keep saying it, the talent is there. So are the customers. But what's missing is the infrastructure underneath them. And infrastructure is something that can be improved.
What is the reality today, Douglas, for a small business owner who is trying to sell a product or trying to sell a service to someone in another country?
You see, the trick is that the system was never really built for them. Take a big global payment processor, for example, say Stripe. They have expanded to 51 of the 152 emerging countries, but they still don't reach most of the developing world directly. Jamaica, where I am from, isn't on that list at all. And in the African markets where these platforms have started showing up, it's often through a workaround with fewer features. So a seller in these emerging countries still can't sign up and shop the same way someone from the US or from London, for example, might. So as a result, they're pushed onto slower, more costly rails. And that's the reality right now. And as I said before, again on the talent, it's already global. The customers are already global. It hasn't caught up with the way that these people get paid or should get paid.
And let's just break it down logistically. Can you give us a practical example of what happens when someone tries to receive an international payment through the traditional channels?
Okay, sure, Laura, I'll break it down. So say a seller in Jamaica makes a sale to a customer in London. In theory, that's great, it's business. In practice, the buyer's credit card might get declined because the platform just doesn't support sellers in that country. And if it does go through, the seller waits up to a week for the money, loses a chunk of it to fees and exchange margins, and has no idea when it will actually land. So for someone living on tight cash flow, that delay can mean they can't buy the materials for the next order. And I want to be really clear, these aren't people who lack skill or drive. They're just locked out by infrastructure. They're standing, as I would say, at a door that was never built to open for them.
And that's what ultimately led you to build BestPay.
Exactly. That is one of our driving forces to build BestPay.
So, someone hearing about BestPay for the first time in this video, what can you explain to them what does the platform actually do?
At its simplest, BestPay lets a small business anywhere in the world accept international payments using the wallet, mobile money account, or the bank they already have. So the money lands in their own local currency pronto on the same day. So our main product is called the BestPay plugin. It's built for a marketplace platform called ShareTribe. This platform has over 2,000 online marketplaces in existence. And with our plugin, any of those 2,000 marketplaces can switch on global payments right away. No complex integration and no need to build a payment system of their own. Underneath, it runs on an open payment standard called the Interledger Protocol. And this lets very different payment systems talk to one another, which is the case in most of every country where they have a separate payment system.
Okay, thank you for breaking that down for me. Can you tell me more about what makes your approach different from existing payment providers?
Okay, a few things really, Laura. First, we're what we call wallet agnostic. So it doesn't matter which wallet you use or prefer. Once it works on the Interledger protocol, we can transact. So that lets us work in countries major providers cannot currently reach. Second, we put local infrastructure first. The money routes directly between regulated local providers and lands in the seller's own currency. So that makes it cheaper and faster. Also, we're built for marketplaces. So we handle automatic fee splitting between the seller, the marketplace, and the platform automatically. But honestly, the thing I'm proudest about isn't a feature, it's a decision. Early on during the building the prototype around a single payment partner, we faced a challenge. The Interledger Foundation's technical team brought us into a meeting and basically said, hey guys, it's great work that you're doing, but you're unfortunately building a closed system. It wasn't truly open. So we had a choice, ship the version that we had already working or tear it down and rebuild it properly. So in August 2025, we tore it down. The whole team reprioritized around an intense 5-week rebuild on the open standard. So working alongside our partners at Journey Horizon, who are the leading ShareTribe development team in the world. It was a hard call, but it's the reason that a few months later at Interledger Summit in Mexico, we could run a live demo. And at that demo, we had a buyer on one wallet paying a seller on a completely different financial institution wallet. So fees were split automatically, no arguments, everyone got paid in real time over the Interledger network.
That is incredible. And we should mention that during this critical period, Hurricane Melissa struck Jamaica, where you're based, and it affected members of your team. So take us back to that moment. What happened there?
Wow, Laura, this is the part I still can't quite believe we got through as well as we did. We were right in the middle of that 5-week rebuild. the most focused, high pressure stretch of the grant program. And Hurricane Melissa is on the way to Jamaica. So it came through as a Category 5, the second most dangerous hurricane in the island's history. And most of our team is based in Jamaica. So I'll try and reproduce what happened as best as I can. So overnight we all lost power, water, communication. Some team members had their homes irreparably damaged. A few packed up and had to move into Kingston from the west of the island, having to drive over 4 hours through roads that were impacted to get to Kingston to find shelter and an internet signal strong enough to get back online.
And what were you hearing exactly from your team members as the storm unfolded?
So for stretches of it, that was the most uncomfortable thing, as we didn't hear anything. There was, all the lines were down, all communications were down. We couldn't reach the Intellectual Foundation, we couldn't reach each other. It was just our immediate families and hope that everyone was safe.
So at any point, obviously you're worried about everyone's lives, but at any point were you also concerned about missing your deadlines or losing momentum on the project?
Yes, that was a natural inclination in me as the founder and one of the group project managers, but the team safety came first. What we did find was that when we were able to get connections up and able to reach out to our team members, they were providing reports and updates on how everything was going. So they all recognized that we had a hard deadline for Mexico, and half the team was, in want of a better word, a disaster zone at that point. But we had some teammates in Trinidad and Barbados. They reached out and said, "Doug, team, how are you doing? We'd like to step up and take on some of the work tasks so that we can meet this deadline." So we were able to get an internet connection with enough persons on. We held a meeting, and the team members in Trinidad and Barbados took on the additional load of the development, the graphics design, and some of the work, as we also planned how we would organize ourselves to get to Mexico.
So
So
clearly,
this is just a testament to the strength of the team, the resilience of the team, and I'm truly grateful for everything that the team has done.
incredible teamwork and the technology survived that test. So I guess now the question becomes, where do you go from here? Where can you go from here?
Well, the technology has proven itself. Now it's about the reach. Our first live deployment is something we call the CASE Marketplace. CASE stands for the Caribbean and African Creators Expo Marketplace. So here's what a lot of people tend to miss. The customers are already there, and there are a lot of them, Laura. The African middle class has tripled since I was a kid. I'm 39 now, to over 300 million people, and it's heading towards 1 billion. A billion people with excess funds to spend on exactly the things our creators make. And then there's the diaspora. So these are Africans and Caribbeans abroad. They send more than 120 billion US home every year. But right now that money only moves in one way, through Western Union or a bank wire. Imagine, Laura, instead of just sending money home, they could contribute to the economy, give back by supporting a designer, a creative, an entrepreneur, an MSME back home quickly and easily. So another thing as well, Africa and Caribbean share so much history and culture, and yet today they barely trade with each other. So a seller in Lagos really and truly should be able to sell to a buyer in Kingston, and both should be able to sell to their diaspora in London, Toronto, Atlanta, or Brooklyn. And what happens as well with this system, Laura, is that with these diaspora payments, all payments settle in their local currency, and that ends up meaning that it will cost a fraction of what it costs today.
That is incredible. So, what does success look like over the next few years for you, Douglas? You've spoken about creating opportunities, not just for individual sellers, but for entire marketplace communities. really the world over. So what does that vision look like for you?
So for us, success starts with proving that the plugin works on one marketplace, then making it easy for thousands of small and growing marketplaces to use. So that's why we built something that we call the BessPay template. It gives existing ShareTribe marketplaces, remember those 2,000 we spoke of before? It gives them a faster way to switch on open cross-border payments without having to build everything from scratch. So we build it once and we give them a plug-and-play system. So what that means is that these 2,000 marketplaces, each one becomes a potential doorway for sellers in developing markets to reach international customers. And the part that really excites me and the team at BessPay is a second function of the BessPay template. What this enables is an MSME, a young entrepreneur, can use the BessPay template to launch a marketplace of their own. They can launch their own Airbnb, their own Uber, for a community they understand better than anyone else in the world, and enabling cross-border payments built in from day one. So that's the bigger vision. Every new marketplace that starts, every new marketplace that's enabled with open payments becomes an engine of income and employment for all the people around it.
And so if everything goes according to this grand plan, how could a young entrepreneur in Kingston, Lagos, Nairobi, or another emerging market interact with BestPay in the future?
I think the best way to do this is to try and picture it. So picture someone in Nairobi who knows the local fashion scene inside and out. So she could spin up her own marketplace for those designers in that market, open it to the buyers who are really interested in getting these clothes, these fashion designs in Africa and the diaspora abroad, and never once have to worry about whether the parents will work, whether the payments will work. And to help people get there, we run a program called the Wealth Builder Series, and it's themed Earn Global, Live Local. So what that is a virtual boot camp for these creatives and these young entrepreneurs aged 18 to 45. It teaches them the practical things, how to set up their business, how to approach clients, how to set up payments, how to actually start earning. And because the technology only matters if people know how to use it, we tend to bring on a technology focus on part of the curriculum as well for that.
And I know you're currently seeking support in order to take this incredible work to the next stage. What would additional funding allow you to do?
So we're at the point where the proof is done. We presented it at the Mexico Summit. The technology works. And now we need to launch. We need to get this out there. We need the runway, and that's what matters. So we're seeking grant funding to take BessPay from this working prototype into the hands of real sellers and buyers who will use those platforms. That support would let us launch our first live marketplace, open the BessPay template up to other entrepreneurs, and run the Wealth Builder boot camps. It would turn a technology that works and proven that it works into something people across the 157 countries in the global south can actually use to earn.
What milestones are you hoping to achieve over the next 12 months?
So over the next 12 months, we want our first marketplaces live and processing real transactions for real sellers and buyers. So we want to bring our first full cohort through the Wealth Builder series, and we want to take the steps towards becoming a fully licensed payments and escrow provider. And that enables us to deliver one of the most wanted features for this service. And buyers keep telling us they want that extra layers of trust that can be only achieved through escrow. They want to know that there's protection whenever they buy, and if there's anything that goes wrong, they can quickly handle those challenges.
Of course. Well, you've mentioned so many features and capabilities that are going to be happening in the future for BestPay. What out of all of them excites you the most?
Well, Laura, what excites me the most is what I call the multiplier. And that's what really brings on the impact. So we've shown that a single payment can move cleanly between two different wallets in two different countries in under a minute. Now imagine that happening thousands of times a day across thousands of marketplaces for more than 1 million small businesses. Every one of those is a person earning a living on their own terms in their own community without leaving home. That's the future that we're working toward here at BessPay.
Douglas, before we go, if someone watching this interview remembers just one thing about BessPay, what would you want it to be?
Laura, the one thing, but before I get to that, I just want to stress talent has never been the problem. The people in the global south are brilliant. They're already building, they're already ambitious. What has been missing is fair access to the payment infrastructure that connects them to the rest of the world. So the one thing we want someone to remember is that BessPay means building the best payment outcomes for the people and businesses the system has too often left behind. So that means helping sellers get paid faster, keep more of what they earn, and reach customers anywhere in the world.
Well, Douglas Davidson, founder and CEO of BessPay, thank you for joining us and thank you for watching.
And thank you so much for having me as well, Laura.